It's all about building revenue. And I know our theater partners have shown us that they are very appreciative of us being committed partners with them to help them grow their revenue. And so everything that we do, that is the cornerstone of what we're trying to do, is just make sure that we give them the tools, the training, the innovation to be able to build those revenue numbers.
This is the Box Office Podcast. I'm Daniel Luria, the editorial director of Box Office Pro, the pulse of theatrical exhibition. Here once again with my colleagues and co-hosts, Rebecca Pauley and Chad Kennard of Box Office Pro. And in this week's episode, we'll be talking to Shane Burquette, the director of strategic marketing over at Agile Ticketing Solutions, this week's sponsor of the show. And that will be happening in the second half of this episode that will also be covering the great opening weekend of Captain America: Brave New World from last frame, and some more industry news. But let's start the way we always do, because one out of the three of us went to the movies this weekend. Rebecca Pauley, what was it? Where was it?
It was Paddington in Peru, braved the cold to head down to the AMC Empire 25 in Times Square. It wasn't as good as the previous two, but it was cute. As you said, it did break all sorts of records in the UK. It was pretty much critic-proof over there, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, you can't go wrong with that one there. Interesting things about the UK box office. There's movies that come out there that really do make an impact, that here in the US don't really get that sort of traction.
The Amy Winehouse documentary. The Amy Winehouse.
Yeah. It wasn't just a documentary, the
feature.
The narrative film, right? The Focus Features
Back
put
to
out
Black
here in the US. Exactly. Yeah, that one did quite well over there. The new Bridget Jones movie that opened last weekend in the UK, fantastically well over there. Isn't even getting a US release at all. I think it's straight to streaming.
I was a big fan of the first Bridget Jones. Not going to talk about the second Bridget Jones for my own sanity. Third one was, they brought it back after a while with Bridget Jones's Baby, I think, and that one was kind of cute. It was kind of cute. So I don't know. I'm curious about 4, but I don't have Peacock, so...
Unfortunately for domestic audiences, it won't be available at U.S. theaters. But Bridget Jones' Mad About the Boy, which is the fourth title in this franchise, opened to $15.5 million. That's 12.3 million pounds from 2,250 screens over in the UK. A fantastic number one finish there. And like we said, you've got these weird anomalies. Paddington in Peru is an example. This Bridget Jones movie is another. The Robbie Williams Better Man movie, we knew that was going to happen, right? Like, it was going to be a UK play here, just get what you can. Mm-hmm. So we have all these anomalies that happen in these overseas markets. And talking about the European markets, Rebecca, we have an update on 2024 box office, admissions, a wonderful set of data from our colleagues over at Unique, the European Trade Association covering the exhibition industry.
Yeah, they put out this report every year immediately in advance of Cine Europe, just kind of giving updated numbers on the 39 countries that they represent over in Europe. We don't have all that data now, obviously, waiting a little bit for that, but they were nice at us to give us a little teaser trailer of what the more complex data is going to show in June. Pretty much it's that things in terms of admission and box office, if you look over the entire 39 territories as an aggregate, are pretty much the same as 2023 as they were in 2024. Admissions decreased by 1.4%. Box office fell by 0.3%, so it's pretty much static. But then the same story that we've seen roll out in previous years of Unique reports, and the same thing that we're seeing, Daniel, in what we just talked about, and Britain-produced films like Back in Black, like the Bridget Jones and Paddington in Peru, really doing well over there. We continued to see countries that had robust local film markets, robust local films, really benefiting from that significant growth from local productions in Bulgaria, in Lithuania. I think in Poland, it got to 23% market share for local films in 2024, 31.3% national market share in Finland. Obviously, France, the national market share in France is always very good. If we're looking at international films screening in Europe, i.e., Hollywood films screening in Europe. Inside Out 2 was the big hit of the year, I think, to the surprise of absolutely no one. But yeah, we're looking forward to seeing that data in more detail right around when Cine Europe rolls around. I always like seeing that chart of which countries have, like in their top 5, who has the local films. I always just like finding about these local films that I never would have known about otherwise, but are really doing a lot to keep their local cinema markets afloat and thriving.
Well, talking about local films that do really well in one country and have, let's say, varying fortunes when they leave, we had the domestic opening of the Chinese blockbuster Nezha 2. I'm probably mispronouncing that terribly, so my apologies there. But domestically, that film overperforming its Showtime market share, according to data from the box office company's Showtime's dashboard. Nezha 2 was the number 9 title in terms of available showtimes this weekend in the United States. It was available in around 660 screens in North America. Guys, it cracked the top 5. Nezha 2 opening as the number 5 film in the North American market with $7.2 million. A great success for this title. But Chad, the real headline here isn't what's happening in the United States. It's what's happening in China. There's no stopping this movie. Now the highest grossing animated film in one market of all time, if I'm not mistaken.
Right. Yeah. China has had a strong post-lunar New Year. Nezha 2. I actually did watch a TikTok pronunciation tutorial, so hopefully I've gotten that right.
You came prepared.
Okay.
That's why we pay you the big bucks, Chad. Thank you.
So, according to Artisan Gateway, Nezha 2 brought in 275.3 million over the weekend, and that takes its total to over 1.6 billion.
Yeah, I might have to sneak back down to the Empire 25 and see it. That's always one of the theaters in New York that plays these international titles. And I mean, it's interesting to me just hearing about it. It seems to really benefit from the big screen. Just the visuals are great. I mean, yeah, it's part of the story that we've seen many times before of animated titles, family titles, really having the ability to cross national boundaries.
By way of example, in 2019, so pre-pandemic, the first film came out and made 719.7 in China. So obviously a big step up already on the sequel there, and then almost double the domestic release too at 3.6 million for the first film.
We didn't have a $1.6 billion blockbuster open in the last couple of weeks here domestically, but we did have the biggest opening weekend of the year in 2025, thanks to Captain America Brave New World, an $87.8 million 3-day frame and a $100 million 4-day frame for the Marvel title. There's nothing to say here other than it performed as we expected it to. This is a movie that wasn't going to make Avengers numbers, but guys, this is in line with titles from the Marvel Cinematic Universe like Doctor Strange and Thor: The Dark World.
Yeah, it's definitely not the, I think, disasters that some of the maybe more toxic fan bros on the internet were hoping / waiting for it to be. It fell, in the middle of the pack, which I think is expected. Really, at this point, it's Marvel. This is the first of 3 films they have coming out this year, and the big one is the Fantastic Four, right? I mean, that's the one that I feel like is a little bit more do or die for Marvel, whereas this one was more, it felt more like a, kind of like a programmer.
63% of the audience was male on opening weekend for this title. Not a huge surprise there. And when we talk about age ranges, 18 to 24 was 20% of that opening weekend audience. The highest range of demo here is 25 to 34 years old at 23%, and then 35 to 44 is another 20%. So you add all of them together, adults ages 18 to 44 represented 63% of this opening weekend for Disney. How did they see the movie? Not another surprise here. As expected, premium large format over-indexing nearly half of that opening weekend box office, 44% of opening weekend box office in North America for Captain America Brave New World, coming from all PLFs combined. Big numbers, as expected. The critical reception, though, hasn't been that hot. I think lukewarm reviews. Is that fair to say, guys?
I think
B
so.
cinema
Yeah.
score, B minus, so which is.
Yeah, not great.
But I mean, we saw like from Ant-Man 3, which out earned Captain America: Brave New World, coming out the same President's Day weekend. I mean, it was not critically beloved. I mean, if we talk about movies that are to a certain extent critic proof, I mean, I don't know if that quite applies to Marvel. It certainly applied to Deadpool and Wolverine.
Yeah, I mean, if we look at these comps, I think, like I mentioned, it's an opening weekend very much in line with two other Marvel titles from the 2010s. You had 2013's Thor: The Dark World, which opened to $85 million and ended up finishing its run at 206 million domestic. That gives you an idea of where this can finish. And then Doctor Strange in 2016 also opened to 85 million. That topped out a little bit higher, 232 million. I think that's a good expectation for this domestically, 200 to 230. That's really where we expect this to finish up. Again, not Deadpool numbers, but we also weren't expecting Deadpool numbers. Having a title in the middle of February do these numbers is something that we absolutely needed in the box office this year.
And it was the first Deadpool movie, right? That was the big February hit that proved that you could release
Yeah,
movies in
yeah.
February and have them make money.
And I can't complain. I don't care if I watch these movies or not. They're not for me. I accept it. They play a crucial role in the industry, the way it's set up now, to carry those Q1 titles beyond the leftovers of the Christmas corridor that happened in January.
And to boost promotion of these films coming out in March and into the summer, trailers, posters.
Unfortunately, though, we did have some labor issues prop up around this release date. Looking at reports here from Deadline and Variety, that 3 Alamo Drafthouse locations actually went through on a strike. These are the only 3 locations that are currently part of a labor union. They formed a picket line in protest of some of the layoffs that Alamo Drafthouse had to do at the beginning of the year. So that opening weekend tally was not part of 3 of the 42 Alamo Drafthouse locations in this country. We don't have much information beyond that, but we will be tracking this story here on the Box Office Podcast in the coming weeks. The 3 locations in question are the Sloan's Lake location in Denver and the Brooklyn and Manhattan locations in New York City. Now, if you go back to our annual preview episode, you'll remember we did bring up labor issues as one of the potential pain points for exhibition this year. This is something that we've seen not only in the movie theater sector, Rebecca, this is happening across every sector of the industry. A lot of national chains having to figure out its labor relations issues because companies like Amazon, like Starbucks, you're seeing some individual locations, like is the case with Alamo, joining a union.
Yeah, there was recently a vote in my home state of North Carolina where the warehouse workers in a warehouse in Garner near Raleigh overwhelmingly voted against the bid to unionize. Like you say, Daniel, this is something that is less specific to one industry than it is relevant to, I think, the general state of our country as a whole. There's definitely realities around every individual industry
Right.
that, just the realities of how theaters operate with, not having so much staff in Q1 where you don't obviously have so many people coming to the movies. But yeah, we'll be keeping up on it as it relates to the movies theater side of things.
This industry is as good as the individual locations that represents it. And of course, having those 3 Alamo locations back online and operational, we're all looking forward to that moment. And in this context of figuring out what your comeback strategy is going to be in 2025 in exhibition, our feature segment in an interview by Rebecca Pauley goes into that topic exactly. Now, Rebecca, you spoke with Shane Burquette from Agile Ticketing Solutions, who are sponsoring this week's episode. Can you preview that conversation before we listen to it?
A lot of what I spoke about with Shane is Agile helping theaters to, and really just overall the need in general to get that revenue where you can and to have a platform that is flexible enough to help you to do that. But yeah, I mean, it's no longer just about ticketing or concessions. It's about, you have to have the digital signage to sell your merch. You have to be able to maybe work with local communities, work with local businesses to do film festivals or screenings that are maybe off-site. Just thinking of ways to get creative and to bring up that revenue, whether you're a nonprofit, whether you're like an independent theater or a small chain or a film festival, something like that. Yeah, really, really focused, I think, at a crucial time on making sure that their theater partners get what revenue they can, especially in Q1. It's quiet.
Yeah, I think those are all important factors to consider. And listen, enough from us. Let's go straight into this interview with Shane Burquette from Agile Ticketing Solutions, coming on after this message from our sponsor.
Since 1999, Agile Tix has been revolutionizing cinema box offices with innovative point-of-sale and web ticketing solutions. Their platform streamlines concession management, enhances customer engagement, and provides actionable real-time analytics. By bridging the gap between operators and their audience, they turn ticket buyers into lifelong patrons, driving success and creating unforgettable cinema experiences.
And I am joined today on the Box Office Podcast by Shane Burquette, Director of Strategic Marketing at Agile Ticketing Solutions. Shane, how you been? We haven't spoken since before the holidays.
Rebecca, I have been great. How have you been? Thank you so much for making this space for us to chat about all things cinema and ticketing.
It's a fascinating space. There's a lot more that goes into it than I think maybe a lot of people think of right off the jump. Can you just kind of give me the rundown of how Agile can help cinemas with their ticketing needs and otherwise across the breadth of their business?
Absolutely. I think, and I'm going to take this from where we're seeing the industry going and where Agile has kind of been in the forefront of this, and that is intelligence and helping our theater partners understand their audience and their community and what they need to offer them so much better because they're already collecting this incredible data inside the ticketing platform. And so we're showing them how to take that data and really use it to understand what type of programming, what type of cinema experiences they need to offer their community. And all of that is in the tea leaves that they're already collecting. So just showing them that, and that's where we're seeing the trends go.
Business intelligence is an added perk of the system.
It really is. I mean, knowledge is power. So that's everything that we're moving toward is helping our theater partners use that data, wield that power, and just offer better experiences to their community and to their ticket buyers. What we're seeing with our theater partners is they're able to take that data and understand here's what they're wanting, or even what creature comforts they want, what they need their concession stand to offer. If they need to offer booze or things like that in their concessions area, or if they need to offer more comfortable chairs, being able to collect that data and understand their customers has helped them be on the forefront of making better decisions for their venue.
And then on the marketing side as well, I mean, you can take all that data, whether it's from a membership or a loyalty program or whatever the case may be, and turn that around and get people to come in more frequently.
It's 100% correct. And you mentioned loyalty programs, which has been a big driving force with us providing that business intelligence component, because you'd be shocked at how much information a ticket buyer will give you for just some basic fun things that you can throw out to them. And they'll give you all the information you need to make those decisions.
People love filling out a survey.
I love doing a survey.
If you give me like a small popcorn in exchange for a survey, I'm there.
It's funny you say that because I hosted a workshop. I don't know if you know, Agile works a lot with our theater partners to kind of get them trained and how to use this data. And so in one of my workshops, I do that. And one of the gals in the workshop, she raised her hand and she goes, well, what do you think a good price point is? And in my workshop, I throw candy bars. And so I said, well, that candy bar cost me 50 cents.
In addition to just, being that ticketing platform, Agile, like you say, going out and doing those classes, I know your customer service is really robust. You're really there to help your partner cinemas maximize what you can give them.
our CEO doesn't believe in phone trees. So when you call our customer service department, you get right into customer service, even on Christmas morning.
That's so
So
great.
it really is.
You almost don't believe it can happen nowadays.
Our brand is really connecting with the customer,
Mhm.
and we know that when they call, they need assistance now. They're not trying to submit a support ticket. They need help right then and there. And so that department really prides themselves on making sure that they answer those questions as expeditiously as possible.
Nowadays, it can be even more complicated to run a cinema because they're not always just cinemas. I mean, we've written a lot in this publication and on the podcast about the rise of family entertainment centers. You know, when you're buying a ticket to go to a movie, you may also be buying a pass to do axe throwing. How does Agile deal with so many moving parts, not just the cinema ticket and the bar, the food, and then all these auxiliary activities as well? That sounds like it can be logistically kind of a knot for theaters to
Right.
untangle on their own.
Rebecca, that's such a great question. So, a little bit about Agile. We've been around for almost 26 years. And in that 26 years, we've built our software almost exclusively for the needs of a theater. So that is from the front door, from the box office, all the way into relationship to the concessions area, making sure that every department has what they need to succeed. And so whenever Agile started going into expanding their verticals and looking at those family entertainment centers, we wanted to make sure that our software was going to translate well in that space.
Mhm.
So our drag and drop film feature, you can also do events in there. So it's not just setting up a film, it's setting up an event, and then there is the ability to schedule that as a film. So you can manage multiple event types, and that's built into the platform. So there's no need to get a third party API. It's just right there. It's built in. That translates directly to the web. It translates directly to your kiosk in the lobby, and it translates out to that mobile. So you can instantly, at the point that you deploy that event/film, it immediately puts that event on sale in all of your different sale channels. And then what's really cool is as your customer is going through that process to purchase that ticket to that event, you can then solicit or sell up different items, different things. Maybe you do want to do that axe throwing contest or that axe throwing experience, or maybe you do want to go ahead and order those concessions in advance. So, while the customer's got their credit card in their hand, you can go ahead and navigate them through all the things they can do to really define what that experience needs to be. And so I'm really proud that Agile has taken the time to really connect all the dots, for not only just the cinema and the theater, but also to help in all those other departments within those expanded experience theaters and family entertainment centers.
And other venues too. I mean, you look
Mhm.
at something, and I know in the 26 years, Agile's worked a lot with film festivals. I
Mhm.
mean, they may not just be in one cinema. They might not just be in cinemas. You might be looking at
Right.
venues that aren't movie theaters year round at all.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Agile has one of the big capabilities of it is cloud based. So it has a multi tenant capability that allows you to deploy either internally, you can deploy it at different locations, which is why we're so popular with film festivals, because it's very rare that a film festival takes place all in one location. It's usually scattered throughout a city, a town, or a location around. So Agile's platform allows you to set up a profile for each of those locations, and then you can deploy those out, and it makes it so much easier to do that. And so that's what we're seeing is those organizations that do have that higher sophisticated need, that's what they're looking at is how can we use this platform. And I'll tell you, we've had a large cinema operation in the United States who their software they couldn't use it for film festivals whenever they leased it. And so they would actually come in and use our software to lay on top of their theater software to manage a film festival that's happening inside their organization. So that's a
Okay.
testament to the Agile system, the way it's built and the way it thinks, is a lot different than just your normal cinema ticketing platform, because it really is about how do you make this easy so that customers can buy tickets to anything, anywhere. We really work to increase the number of ways that you can sell tickets. And we're always looking at that component whenever we're looking at building out this platform or enhancing any innovations inside the platform.
It sounds almost like it's modular, like just plug in the pieces. It's this sort of event with this sort of capacity at this cost
Mhm.
point in this location. And it's very, very flexible in what you're able to do with it, it sounds like.
It really is. I mean, and I think modular is a great term because it does the silos that you use. The box office is where the conversation usually starts, whether that box office is in your customer's pocket or at your traditional or historic box office or wherever. You can go right up there and that's where the conversation starts. And then Agile just walks you through each department and or each experience level. And depending on your budget, you can define that experience level. And Agile helps navigate that conversation all the way through from front end to back end. Even on the back end, being able to send out an email to that customer and say, how did you enjoy the film? So collecting that data so
Mhm.
that you can continue to enhance that experience for your patron, for your ticket buyer, and your community.
That leads into something I wanted to ask you as well. I mean, you're setting up the event in whatever particular way the company wants it to be run.
Mhm.
It can be very, very diverse, a lot of different things. You get the ticketing set up. Okay, everything works. They come to the cinema. Maybe they added axe throwing or concessions. But of course, everyone in this industry knows that is not the end of your responsibility to your customers. You still
No.
need to make sure that the guest experience as soon as they walk through the door is A plus. What does Agile do to help cinemas make that happen?
Yeah. Well, we know that studies show that if you reach out to a new customer within 48 hours of that customer experiencing your service or product, and you invite them to come back, you're 70% more likely to get them coming back through your door in the next 30 days.
Mhm.
So we already know that. We know that statistically. So Agile can help facilitate that entire conversation. We know that you went to see this film. How
Mhm.
did you like this film? What can we do better? And so we'll help you collect that data. And then you can say, you know what, come to the next film for that free bag of popcorn.
Mhm.
Get them back in the door, make them a loyal evangelist of your organization because we also know that if they're walking through your door, they're going to tell somebody about that experience. And we want them to. We want to show off how we're going to blow their minds with what our theater can do. And so the Agile platform helps our theater operators manage that entire experience from front end to back end. So it really is about creating, managing, and building that relationship with that ticket buyer.
Mhm. And you're not spamming them. I mean, we've all had the
No.
experience of, I feel like I get emails from businesses that I've walked past and maybe breathed on them. And now I'm getting emails from them like 5 years later. This is custom because you have that data and you can customize it for what your guest is actually demonstrably interested in.
Agile's really sensitive about that. We really, first of all, we educate our customers on the proper ways to communicate with your ticket buyers, and then we show a lot of best practices. And we feel like, first of all, films are fun, right? Film is fun. If you get an email from a theater that you just visited and they're showing you the next 3 or 4 films that are coming, chances are you're going to be happy
Yeah,
about that
you
email.
wanted that information.
Right. Exactly. So it's relevant marketing. And so it's something that you're probably going to do. And so what we like to do is we like to add a little bit of intelligence to that process. And that is, I know that Rebecca likes thrillers or she likes, comedies. And so what we would recommend is say, you know what, how about you send an email to Rebecca that says, hey, we're having a little comedy fest or we're having a thriller fest, something of that nature to really kind of get you into the habit of opening that email. We also are offering a nice new feature where the theaters or the cinemas can have their own mobile app.
Mm.
And what this is really cool because once a client downloads the mobile app and their loyalty card is in there and their membership is in there and it's got their ticket lockbox, so all the tickets that they buy, that also gives that theater an easier way to communicate directly with that ticket buyer. So I've already become an evangelist. I'm already connected to that venue. Our theaters are typically very location based. You usually have your favorite location. And so it's easy for me to justify downloading downloading that app, and it's easy for me to justify those notifications, especially when they're relevant, when they're things that are based upon my historical purchasing habit with that particular vendor or with that particular theater. So that's what I like to do. And we're seeing more and more theaters understand the power of communication and making it relevant and making it personal.
I feel like as an industry, we've only scratched the surface of the possibilities of data and the creative ways to use it. There's so much room for innovation and experimentation moving forward. Where do you think the industry is going in that regard?
I think AI is going to be a major disruptor, and it's probably going to be in predictive sales for theaters. Being able to know whenever you put that movie on screen, they're going to be able to tell you just how well it's going to do in your community or in your venue or whatever. And then you're going to see a lot of automations happening within the theater. I actually went, I want to say like 10 years ago, I was in Los Angeles and went to a presentation where they were showing a theater that was almost all automated. They had, the even the concessions area was kind of automated. So, and that you could pre-buy it and then you walked in and it knew at the point that it scanned your ticket, which Agile does this already, but it scanned your ticket and that it would cue the concessions area to go ahead and get your concessions going.
Oh, nice.
So you didn't have, you could pre-buy it. And once you scanned, it would flag the concessions area, and then that moves them right over to getting that, and then limiting that time frame that you're having to stand in line waiting for those concessions. Which I think we're going to see more and more generationally. We're going to see more and more of that expectation happening, where people don't want to have to wait in line. They want that experience to be, I want you to know who I am, I want you to know what I like, and I want you to plan on the fact that I'm coming. And so that's what we're seeing. So I think the trend is probably going to be more predictive sales. And you've got to be on the forefront of that. And so Agile has been building out this platform to do that. Agile Ticks has been working on making sure that we're ready for that predictive sales element when the customers are ready for it.
Data can be a scary concept if you're not in that world. AI, I feel like same thing times 10, especially now when there's so much going on in that world. For a smaller cinema or smaller chain, someone maybe doesn't have a chief technology officer who knows all this stuff. How does Agile work with those smaller operators to be able to get in on the early end of these innovations rather than just kind of having to look at the big guys do something and then try to figure out how to do it later?
Well, what you described is exactly what we see. We see a lot of theaters where you have maybe a small chain of theaters scattered through, within a 100-mile radius, and they don't have that full-time IT person at their location, or everything is kind of managed from one central location, which goes back to that multi-tenant capacity that Agile offers. So it allows one person to manage 10, 15, 20 locations or more, all from one central area. So that's a great benefit. So what I'm seeing, and how we'd serve those customers, and why it makes sense for them to look at a platform like Agile, is that because they probably don't have that labor resource that can drive around or that's not at that location, it makes sense to have a cloud-based solution where they can have both the service of our 24-hour service that's available to them, as well as all of our learning programs that we offer on a daily and weekly basis that they can always have their team members can be a part of that. That's included in the price of admission, so that's really great. So it's just a matter of getting in there and learning the software and then deploying it out to all your venues, and you don't have to hire that. You first of all don't have to load servers to that location, and then you don't have to hire those IT professionals that can be a high dollar salary that you can save on.
I know you guys got into the cloud early.
We were in the cloud when the cloud wasn't cool. That's what we like to say. We roll our updates out about every 90 days. We do some updates to the software and bring in some nice halves and some nice features that allow our theaters to remain very modern and offer those state-of-the-art technologies and innovations that you would normally expect from like a larger chain, we can provide those to the smaller organizations and the smaller theaters as well.
You can help them figure out how to use it, how to roll it out, what might be good for their organization,
Yeah.
even if even if you need to call on Christmas.
And what's really great is I mentioned the updates are about every 90 days, and it's effortless, and it's also included. So we don't charge for updates. So you get all those cutting edge features, visual venue, which is our in theater digital signage, which
Mhm.
has become just an amazing aspect of being able to communicate what's happening, where the restrooms are, all that good stuff. You can deploy that again from one seat. You can have a theater chain and you can deploy messaging to all your theaters effortlessly. So it really, really alleviates having to have somebody manage that communication. What we've learned is that cinemas that offer some sort of visually appealing signage,
Mhm.
whether it be here's what films are coming or here's what events are happening, or it can even be a video of a soda pop pouring into a cup,
Mhm.
that will increase sales statistically anywhere from 400 to 500%. So
Mm.
people, when they see it, it looks appetizing. And so we wanted to make sure that our theaters weren't getting cut out of that revenue growth opportunity. And so what we did is we built the visual venue application that allows them to get a TV, hang it up, and they can put their signage, have that rotating, and hopefully drive those revenue numbers up for them. It's all about building revenue, and I know our theater partners have shown us that they are very appreciative of us being committed partners with them to help them grow their revenue. And so everything that we do, that is the cornerstone of what we're trying to do, is just make sure that we give them the tools, the training, the innovation to be able to build those revenue numbers.
And that was Shane Burquette, the Director of Strategic Marketing over at Agile Ticketing Solutions, speaking with our very own Rebecca Pauley. Thank you again for listening to this week's episode. We'll be back with a new one next Thursday. Don't forget to subscribe to stay ahead of the latest news and updates in theatrical exhibition. And don't forget to visit our website, boxofficepro.com, for the latest news headlines. Thanks again for listening, and we will talk to you again next week.